Instead of being aborted, I was born.
Not only did I survive an abortion, but I did because God saved my life, and here are all of the amazing things He did in my life.
I feel alive when I'm not forgotten.
She is that voice calling out from the womb saying, you know, I have a life, you know, I'm alive, please let me live.
Gratitude is what comes to mind when I think of being alive, because I survived an abortion, so I shouldn't even be. I have the gift of cerebral palsy, and yet I'm not defined by my suffering. I am so filled with the knowledge of God's love for me.
The future, their mothers chose life. That's why we're here.
Because people can look at me and think that I'm a victim in this, but I'm going to assure you all tonight that I am not a victim at all.
It's the whole essence of God's message to humanity, which is, I am on your side, and that's why I give you life to the full.
She would send me an email and check up on me, and that's when I began the healing process.
Samuel squeezes and the doctor shakes, and that's the moment I took the picture.
You mean there's a heart beating?
This generation will abolish abortion in our lifetime.
She aborted you, and you live.
Thank you on behalf of my little girl.
Thank you so much for what you're doing.
I can't imagine what the world would be like without her. And that's what I want people to understand.
I feel more alive now than ever, but I'm adopted, and I have what I consider to be the gift of cerebral palsy, which was caused by a lack of oxygen to my brain while I was surviving an abortion. So, though it is a fictitious story, it really is based on a true story. It really does. I guess I could have stayed ashore. I didn't have to go. They say sometimes to find yourself, you gotta let go. But to sing, it's like, it's so soothing to me. It's written by a friend of mine. It's called Ocean Floor by Michael Logan. And every time I hear it, I mean, I just weep. And I do not believe in recording any song that doesn't move me on a very profound level.
But it was very important when we finished the film to see what Gianna thought about it. And she finally saw it and really loved it. And that was important to me.
I know how the film changed me. Three scenes in particular, just whoa. I mean, I just was not prepared at all. But I just engaged with it, you know.
And she said, I laughed so hard, I cried so hard, and I healed. And I just thought that that was powerful, because that's the point of the movie. And above all else, I think that her life is just beautiful and is a testament to the beauty of life in general and to what the world would have lost if she had never been given the right to exist. And so I think it's a powerful moment in the film, and I'm proud to have her voice in the movie.
To be able to sing it, to sing out who I am and not just be told, oh, just tell your story. But it is the story. It just really symbolizes right now in my own life, my own willingness to heal. I can hear God call my name. Singing to me is the one thing in me that comes out without effort. The thing that I love about life is finding the small things that we tend to ignore. Life is, I think, not as complicated as we make it. My life is sacred and I'm defined by God. My life is beautiful. I'm adopted, and my biological mother was 17, and so was my biological father. She was 7.5 months pregnant when she decided to go to Planned Parenthood, which is the largest abortion provider in the world, and they counseled her to have a late-term saline abortion, which is a saline salt solution that is injected into the mother's womb. The baby gulps that solution, it burns the baby inside and out, and then she is to deliver a dead baby within 24 hours. And to everyone's great shock and surprise, I didn't arrive dead but alive on April the 6th, 1977 in a Los Angeles County abortion clinic. What's fantastic about this, about the perfect timing of my arrival, is that the abortionist was not on duty yet. So he wasn't even given the opportunity to continue on with his plan for my life, which was death. And I know that I am in a government building, and a beautiful one it is, and I love your country as well as my own. But I know in the age that we live in, it is not at all politically correct to say the name of Jesus Christ in places like this. To bring him into these sorts of meetings, because his name can make people so terribly uncomfortable. But I didn't survive so I could make everyone comfortable. I survived so I could stir things up a bit. And I have a great time doing it. And so I was delivered alive, as I've already said, after 18 hours. I should be blind, I should be burned, I should be dead. And yet I'm not. You know what is fantastic vindication is the fact that the abortionist had to sign my birth certificate. So I know who he is. And it also says, for any skeptic listening, on my medical records, born during saline abortion. Ha! They didn't win. I've done some research on the man that performed the abortion on me. And his clinics are the largest chain of clinics in the United States of America, and they gross $70 million a year. I read a quote from him at some point several years ago, and he said, "I have aborted over 1 million babies, and I consider it my passion." I tell you these things because, listen, ladies and gentlemen, we are in an interesting battle, whether we realize it or not, in this world. It is a battle between life and death. What side are you on? So a nurse called an ambulance and had me transferred to a hospital, which is absolutely miraculous. Generally, the practice at the time, and up until 2002, was, in my country, was to end the life of an abortion survivor by strangulation, suffocation, leaving the baby there to die, or throwing the baby away. But on August the 5th, 2002, my extraordinary President Bush signed into law the Born Alive Infants Protection Act to prevent that from occurring anymore. You see, we're playing for keeps. We're playing I'm hoping to be hated by the time that I die so that I can feel God about me and understand what it was to be hated. He was hated. Christ was hated. And not that I look forward to being hated, but I know along my journey, I know I'm already hated because I declare life. I say, you didn't get me. The silent Holocaust didn't win over me. And my mission, ladies and gentlemen, among many things, is this: to infuse humanity into a debate that we have just compartmentalized and set on a shelf and said it is an issue. We have removed our emotions. We are becoming harder. Do you really want that? How much are you willing to take, and how much are you willing to risk to speak the truth in love and graciousness and stand up and at least be willing to be hated? Or at the end of the day, is it all about you or me? And so, after that, I was placed in an emergency foster care home where they decided they didn't like me very well, and as I'm fond of saying, I don't know how you could not adore me right from the start. What is wrong with these people? But they didn't. You see, I've been hated since conception by so many, and loved by so many more, but most especially by God. I'm his girl. You don't mess with God's girl. I got a sign on my forehead that says, you better be nice to me because my Father runs the world. So after I was placed in the mean home, I was taken out of the mean home and placed into another home, a beautiful home, Penny's home. And she said by this time I was 17 months old, 32 pounds of dead weight, and diagnosed with what I considered to be the gift of cerebral palsy, which was caused directly by the lack of oxygen to my brain while I was trying to survive. Now, I am just compelled to say this. If abortion is merely about women's rights, ladies and gentlemen, then what were mine? There was not a radical feminist standing up and yelling about how my rights were being violated that day. In fact, my life was being snuffed out in the name of women's rights. And ladies and gentlemen, I would not have cerebral palsy had I not survived all of this. So when I hear the appalling, disgusting argument that we should have abortions because the child just might be disabled, oh, the horror that fills my heart. Ladies and gentlemen, there are things that you will only be able to learn by the weakest among us. And when you snuff them out, you are the one that loses. The Lord looks after them, but you are the one that will suffer forever. And what arrogance, what absolute arrogance, and it has been an argument for so long in this human place that we live, that the stronger should dominate the weaker, should determine who lives or dies. The arrogance of that, don't you realize that you cannot make your own heart beat? Don't you realize that all the power that you think you possess, you really possess none of it? It is the mercy of God that sustains you, even when you hate him. So they looked at my dear Penny and they said, Gianna will never be anything, which is always encouraging. And she decided to ignore them, and she worked with me 3 times a day, and I began to hold up my head, and they said, well, Gianna will never this and never that. Long story shorter, I was walking by the age of 3.5 with a walker and leg braces, and I stand up here today with a mild little limp and without a walker and leg braces. I fall gracefully sometimes and very ungracefully at other times, depending on the situation, but I consider it all for the glory of God. You see, ladies and gentlemen, I am weaker than most of you, but this is my sermon. And what a small price to pay to be able to blaze through the world as I do and offer hope. And I think in our misunderstanding of the way things work, we misunderstand how beautiful suffering can be. I don't willingly sign up for it, but when it comes, we forget. We forget that God is in control and God has a way of making the most miserable thing beautiful. I have met my biological mother. I have forgiven my biological mother. I am a Christian. She's a very broken woman. She came to an event I was having 2 years ago, showed up unannounced, and said, "Hello, I'm your mother." And it was a very difficult day. And yet, while I was enduring all of this, you'll probably think I'm silly, but I was sitting there and I was thinking, I don't belong to you. I belong to Christ. I'm his girl, and I'm a princess. So no matter what you say, in all your anger and brokenness and rage, it's not mine to keep. It's not mine to carry, and I won't. I was saying all this inside. So ladies and gentlemen, you have an opportunity. But for just a brief moment, I would like to speak directly to the men in this room and do something that is never done. Men, you are made for greatness. You are made to stand up and be men. You are made to defend women and children, not stand by and turn your head when you know murder is occurring and do nothing about it. You are not made to use women and leave us alone. You are made to be kind and great and gracious and strong and stand for something. Because men, listen to me, I am too tired to do your job. Women, you are not made for abuse. You are not made to sit and not know your worth and your value. You are made to be fought for forever. So now is your moment. What sort of people are you going to be? I trust incredible. I trust, men, you will rise to the occasion. To the politicians listening, particularly to the men, I would say this: you are made for greatness, set your politics aside. You are made to defend what is right and good. This fiery young girl will stand here and say, now's your moment. What sort of man do you want to be? A man obsessed with your own glory, or a man obsessed with the glory of God? I'll just end with this. Some of you might be slightly annoyed that all I keep doing is talking about God and Jesus. But how on earth can I walk about limping through this world and not give all my heart and mind and soul and strength to the Christ who gave me life? So if you think I'm a fool, it's just another jewel in my crown. My whole intent in living here is to make God smile. I hope some of this made sense. It just came from my heart. God bless and keep you.
think of when I say the words abortion survivor. If you said women who've had an abortion, you'd be wrong. Today you're going to meet people who were the intended target of death. Yes, babies who were aborted. Babies escape abortion more times than you realize. And today we're going to put faces to the statistics of a segment of society that's known as abortion survivors. Stay with us. 2 years ago, I interviewed Melissa Oden about her shocking account of abortion survival. In 1977, Melissa survived a failed saline abortion. She was left for dead by the abortionist, but a nurse found her and stepped in to save her life. She was later adopted by a loving family. In the 2 years since our interview, Melissa has continued to share her story and impact many people around the world. She's now focused on finding other survivors and helping them heal. This past year, she founded the Abortion Survivors Network to bring together survivors who are ready to share their stories. What led you to found the Abortion Survivors Network?
You know, certainly I think when I last spoke with you and I started to get those emails, and I'm not just talking 1 or 2 emails, and over time, no matter where I've gone, no matter what I've done, those emails have kept coming in. And so I knew that this was a huge part of what I'm called to do in this world, because just like I spent so many years thinking I must have been the only one, all of those survivors had the same response. Thank you for coming forward. Thank you for speaking out. I've always thought I was alone. And I want other survivors to be able to know they're not alone. I want them to have an opportunity to heal, to find support from other survivors.
What is the mission of your organization?
You know, first of all, to educate the public about abortion and about abortion survivors. You know, the amount of traffic that our website has seen since this spring has survived has just surprised me. And to hear the public's responses, I can't think of one negative comment that we've gotten through our website in 6 months. But the ones that I can't count, because they are so many, are the ones that say, thank you. I had no idea. I'm going to share this with other people in my life.
What kind of comments, I'm curious, do you get from other people in your group who have survived abortion?
You know, the responses from other survivors have been very moving for me and have really changed even my life. Because from so many survivors that I hear from, a lot of them have been raised in their biological families by the parents who had the failed abortions. And to hear about the struggles that they've gone through, the difficulties, you know, what it's been like to be told, couldn't you have just died like you were supposed to? You know, we tried to end your life. And there have been survivors who have lived their entire lives being ridiculed. And why? Because of someone else's own pain? Someone else's own guilt, you know, the way their own family feels about what they did that didn't succeed. So those responses really have shaped me in a way that I never saw coming, and I want them to be able to find kind of a family within us that maybe that they didn't have before.
Are you providing counseling to these people who need it?
I do outreach with people one-on-one, and I get them in touch with other survivors in the group who I feel like are a good match for them. And right now I'm still working to find a network of counselors who we can regularly refer to, who can deal with the kind of issues that a lot of us as survivors have.
Melissa, many people feel that somebody surviving an abortion would be a very, very rare thing indeed. Do you have any idea of how many people have survived the abortion?
If people visit the Abortion Survivor Network website, they can see on the Failed Abortions Get Educated page or Get Informed, they can read the statistics through Real Choice that say, based on failed abortion rates through the Centers for Disease Control, it's estimated minimally that there could be 44,000 other late-term abortion survivors in the U.S. alone.
Really?
And certainly based on my own experiences, you know, everywhere I go, every event that I do, there are survivors or people who know survivors in the room, whether they talk about it or not openly. And so I would say, even just based on my own experiences, that number could very well be at that or higher.
24-year-old Claire Colwell from Austin, Texas, grew up knowing she was adopted. In 2009, with the support of her adoptive parents, she began searching for her birth mother. Claire eventually found her, and their first meeting was a wonderful reunion. But when they met for the second time, Claire learned the shocking truth of her birth.
Well, as I prepared to go up to meet her, I had bought her a ring, and it had my birthstone on it. I wanted her to have something that showed her my appreciation for what she had done for me. When I gave her those gifts, she had some happy tears, and she put the ring on, and then she opened the card that I gave her. And on the card, I could have written thousands of words for how grateful I was, but I summed it up and I said, "Thank you for choosing life. That's the greatest gift I've ever received." And the happy tears quickly turned into very, very sad tears. And she took me into a back room and she started telling me about her life at the time that she was pregnant with me. She said that she was 13 years old. And when she confronted her mom about being pregnant, her mother said that there was only one thing to do. She was in 8th grade and she was too young to be a mother. And so my birth mother was driven to a local abortion clinic that day, and she had a surgical abortion at 5 months pregnant. She went home. She believed what the doctors told her, that her life would go back to normal. And my birth mother's life never went back to normal. In fact, 4 weeks later, she was in gym class with her best friend, and her friend said, "You know, things don't seem right. You seem to still be growing. Maybe you should go get this checked out." And so her mother took her back to that same abortion clinic, and the abortionist said that her abortion had been successful, but that she was still pregnant. She had been pregnant with twins, and one had been successfully aborted, but one had survived, and so she was still mothering a child. And they said, "What would you like to do?" And her mother quickly said, "Well, she needs another abortion. She's too young." By now, she was 6 months pregnant. And so they referred her out of state to a late-term abortionist in Kansas. And as he examined her, he said, "I can't do it either." And the reason was because the sac that I was in had been broken. And so her amniotic fluid had been leaking, and that was a risk for infection and could be fatal for the mother. And so I was born a couple weeks later. And when I was born, I weighed 3 pounds, 2 ounces. My hips were dislocated. My feet were turned in as club feet. And I was in the hospital for 2.5 months on life support. And for the next couple years of my life, they put me in multiple casts and harnesses and body casts to correct what the abortion had done to my body.
Claire, what was your reaction to her story?
Well, I put myself in her shoes at 13, and I knew that as a 13-year-old, you rely on the wisdom of your parents. And for me to realize, okay, if my parents had told me this is the best thing for you at 13, I can't say that that's not what I would have done. And so I had a great amount of forgiveness for my birth mother. I also had an enormous amount of gratitude, and I realized that I couldn't wake up every single morning taking my life for granted anymore, that it was important, and there was a reason that I was here, and there's a reason that every single person is here.
And in your case in particularly, this is a generational miracle. You survived miraculously the first abortion, you escaped miraculously from the second, and now you're very close to having a child of your own.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Does that ever stop and make you think?
Gosh, she wouldn't be here if God hadn't had a bigger plan. And I know that God has a bigger plan now for her life. And so I'm really excited for that.
Do you plan to tell her someday about your story?
Yes, sir. I do.
Clara spent the past several years speaking and sharing her story with people across the country. Every time she tells her account of survival, she receives astonishment and then positive words of encouragement. Claire's mother, Barbara, has been able to witness the impact this experience has had on Claire's life. Her experience and the passion it ignited has been greater than she could have hoped for.
I have seen it really give her just a clarity and a purpose for her life, and it has been so encouraging to me to see just her courage and her boldness as she's been available to tell her story. I mean, it kind of started in little baby steps as the people in College Station where she was were amazed and excited about her story, and they were like, you need to let people know about this. And little did she know just the wide gate that was being opened for her to tell her story.
Well, it's truly a miracle that Claire is here. Can you imagine life without her?
I can't imagine life without her. She is precious, and even as we sit at our computer and in our house, we have so many pictures of just life in our family, of our girls growing up, and it's been such a blessing, and she is a blessing, and I just love her tender heart and how she cares for people. And I wonder, and I really believe, I think what she went through in the womb of really what she experienced has given her just a compassion for others, and I see it all the time.
You've really survived 2 attempts at abortion, and then you've been chosen by your parents to be adopted. I would think that would make you feel like a very special person.
Yeah, I do. I've been very, very blessed.
I really think it is a game changer, even for the pro-life movement. You know, when I first came forward back in 2007, you know, there were kind of some responses to me that said, oh, that's great, nice to meet you, but there's already been an abortion survivor before. That's wonderful, but we are all unique individuals who I believe our lives were saved for a great purpose and great reason. And so I think that that has really given pause to the movement to say, wow, this is amazing. There isn't just one, there isn't just 2 or 3. We're talking hundreds, if not thousands. And you know, what can they do to change the landscape? What can they do to start a conversation that's maybe never been had before?
What is your message to perhaps an abortion survivor who's watching this program?
You know, first of all, you're not alone. And I hope that that brings that survivor peace, to know that there are other people who understand what it's like and have been able to heal. Whether or not people choose to come forward or do something to get involved, that is their personal choice.
She was 14 when her older sister got pregnant out of wedlock and considered an abortion. Melissa's mother, Linda, wanted to stop her daughter from having the abortion and told her daughters the shocking circumstances of Melissa's birth.
She said, you know, we never meant to keep it from you. There's no easy way to tell you this. Please know that we'll always love you. And then she just kind of blurted it out. She said, you know, Melissa, your mother had an abortion during her 5th month of pregnancy with you, and you survived it.
In 1978, Melissa's teenage birth mother walked into an abortion clinic expecting to walk out with her problem solved. She chose a saline injection to end the life of her 5-month-old baby. When the procedure was over, a nurse heard her 2-pound baby crying from the discarded medical waste. Social services knew Mr. and Mrs. Cross wanted to adopt another baby girl, but they didn't know if they would take such a high-risk baby.
When we first saw Melissa, her head was shaved from temple to temple because she was too little to suck, and they fed her intravenously. Told us all the things that could be wrong with her because of the premature birth, but as soon as they put her in my arms, I knew she was going to be fine. She was just beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Melissa recovered completely and lived a normal childhood until the circumstances of her birth were revealed. Now questions flooded her mind.
The biggest question was why? Why could you make that decision to end my life? You know, could I have been so unwanted and so unloved by them? Even though I knew that Jesus loved me and my family loved me, it could not take away the pain. For me, it made absolute sense to look for my biological parents. I mean, first of all, I wanted answers, and then very quickly it moved to wanting to let them know that I was okay. And I also wanted to let them know that no matter what, I'm still their daughter, and let them know that I also forgave them.
Over the next 16 years, Melissa conducted an exhaustive and painful search for her birth parents. After gaining access to her records, she discovered her birth father had passed away. Melissa was able to locate her maternal grandparents, who responded to her efforts with a letter and pictures. But they decided it was best not to contact her birth mother.
In the letter, my grandfather included a couple pictures of my mother. And when I looked at those pictures, I couldn't recognize anything about myself in her. But that was a huge moment in my life, too, because I'll just remember always looking at that picture, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I went, Lord, I get it. I'm not her. I wasn't supposed to be her. I'm me, and I'm a wonderful gift the way that you made me.
Melissa is now married, and there is no doubt in her mind that God saved her for a purpose. And part of that purpose, she says, is sharing her story of life with the world. And she treasures being a mother herself.
I know that that was the Lord's plan for me also, because all those years I just desperately wanted to be a mother. But I was very scared. I had to heal from a lot of pain about my life. And so I didn't want to become a mother until I felt like I was whole.
Ironically, Melissa gave birth to Olivia in the same hospital her own life was supposed to end.
I literally used to drive past that hospital gripping the wheel of my car because it was so hurtful for me to know that that is the building where I struggled for my life. And now I can drive past that hospital with my head held high because it holds the most beautiful memories that I will ever hold in this life. There is no greater gift, I believe, that a woman can give than life to a child. And if she believes that she can't provide for that child forever, that the next best thing that she can do for that child then is to give them the joy of being with another family for adoption. And so, you know, people can say all the time, you shouldn't have lived. How could you have lived? And for me, that answer is very simple. It was the Lord. He had every hand in it. The Lord packaged me this way, and He made me the person that I am to go forth and share His message. Because people can look at me and think that I'm a victim in this, but I'm going to assure you all tonight that I am not a victim.
You don't mess with God's girl. I got a sign on my forehead that says, you better be nice to me because my Father runs the world. I'm His girl, and I'm a princess. So no matter what you say, in all your anger and brokenness and rage, it's not mine to keep. It's not mine to carry, and I won't. But how on earth can I walk about limping through this world and not give all my heart and mind and soul and strength to the Christ who gave me life?
There is no life without its hunger. Each restless heart beats so imperfectly. But when you come and I am filled with wonder, sometimes I think I glimpse eternity. Stand on mountains to walk on stormy seas, and I am strong when I am on your shoulders. to more than I can be. You raise me up to more than I can be.
My life is sacred and I'm defined by God. My life is beautiful.
And the water's cold around me now, so far below. And I hear a voice beside me now, just try to let go. And I'm just here in the ocean floor, but the world's not moving anymore. In the quiet, something has changed. I can hear God call my name. Before I go, I wanna take a moment and rest, and look back on all my days above and how I was blessed. And I wasn't all I could have been, that I confess, but I love my God and family, no regret.